Everybody, and welcome to our first annual distance learning back to school night. My name is Peter Monquist. I am your student's 8th grade core teacher, and welcome. I'm sorry you guys can't be here in person. I'm sorry all the students can't be here in person. It's not what any of us were hoping for, but hope at some point during this year I get to meet all of your children in person, and I hope I get to meet all of you at our open house later in the year. I know we're all hoping for that, so hopefully that happens. Tonight I'll be kind of going over just some of the things we do in class and some of the websites and curriculum that we're going to be using this year and that we've already started. So first, Schoology, which I believe you should all be on right now watching this video. It's kind of taking the place of School Loop, but it's just going to have a lot more for us on there to use. We're able to embed videos on there. Eventually we'll be able to host our meetings on there as well because we're able to access video through Schoology. We have all our links to our other sites on there. Our gradebook is on there, communication with email, kind of everything in one place. We just started using it here at school. We started using it about 2 weeks ago, so there's a lot still to learn. Sure, if you've looked through it, there's just a lot on there. So I'm still kind of working the kinks out and getting to use the interface on there and learning just all the ins and outs of it. So that'll become a more smooth process as we go on. But for right now, we're using that every single day. Students are coming on through Schoology, using the links to get into our online web meetings, and then using that for all of their assignments as well. So the first thing I'll kind of talk about on there is social studies. So for social studies, we're kind of going to be using 3 different formats right now to begin with. One thing I'm using with the students is called CNN 10, and that is where we kind of watch current events every day on CNN 10. Right now it's really centered around kind of COVID or political current events that are happening in the world, but there's kind of tied into everything on there. So the kids seem to like it so far. It's only about 10 minutes, and generally I'm having the kids either talk about it in our web meetings or writing up a small summary about it. As we get closer to the November election, there's going to be a lot more for the election process on there as well, but it's just kind of a way for us to look at current events each day. We're also going to be using something called Newsela, and we access that through Schoology as well. And that's just a website that has different articles on there, and I'm able to assign social studies articles to the students through our Newsela program. When they read the article, I'm actually able to adjust the reading level on there. So if the student needs a higher reading level, lower reading level, I can adjust that for individual students. Then there's also a quiz on there for all the articles they read, and there's also a writing assignment. We won't always use the writing assignment depending on how much time we have, but the kids will be taking a comprehension quiz almost every time they do a reading on Newsela. We will be using our textbook as well, and there's a reading study guide the kids should have that accompanies the textbook. Right now, our social studies curriculum, the textbook, does not have an online component to it that we can use. So we'll be using that more when we kind of do projects and more project-based learning. So in social studies, though, for history, we will be covering from the American Revolution up until about World War I. And so throughout the year, we'll just be hitting different aspects of that. And again, we'll be using the CNN 10 for current events, but then we'll be using Newsela and our textbooks around social studies. So that's kind of where that is right now. Social studies is kind of is really fluid right now. We're kind of figuring it out, having to develop new lessons just because there isn't that online component. So that's going to be changing as the year goes on, but I'll communicate with you as those changes occur. Right now, we don't have any homework for either of our classes because we're just starting out this distance learning. The district's asked us not to assign homework at the moment. Once we kind of get our rhythm down and students are kind of in the flow of this distance learning style, we might start introducing that homework. But for right now, the students are kind of working in the morning for more independent work, and then we're meeting in the afternoon, looking at our textbooks, looking at the websites, and doing it that way. So that's really social studies. We'll be kind of expanding that as the year goes on. In English right now, we are using StudySync, which we used last year, so the kids are really familiar with that. We'll also be reading a couple novels. We'll be reading The Diary of Anne Frank, and we'll be reading Bull Run when we get closer to our Civil War unit. We might introduce a third novel, but with the limited time that we have students with distance learning, we'll kind of wait and see how the year shakes out, whether we go to a hybrid model or students start coming back to school and we have them for a little bit more time. I am going to ask that the students are reading every day. So if they can select a book, they are able to get books from our library here. They can email me or email our librarian, set up a time to pick up one of those books. But if you have a book at home or you're able to get a book from the public library, I'd love it for every student to have a book that they're working on throughout the year. So I did want to go through and show you what our StudySync program looks like. It's something we'll be using all year long. It's a pretty detailed program and it's all online based, so I want to go over that with you. So I'm going to share my screen with you all and kind of walk you through kind of what the students will do for each unit on StudySync. So here we have our StudySync program, and the students access this through a clever link that is on Schoology. We've already, as a class, gone into StudySync and done a couple of assignments, and right now every student has been able to get on there and use that, so we are good to go. These are the units we'll be looking at this year. We have Unit 1, which is, they're all themed, but Unit 1 is Suspense. Unit 2 will be In Time of War. Unit 3 will be A Moral Compass. I don't think we'll get to Unit 4. That's centered around the Civil War, but we're going to be touching on the Civil War a lot in our social studies chapter. So the first unit we're going to be starting with is Suspense. So I just wanted to kind of show you what your students will do each day, what your children will do each day, and how we kind of work through this unit. So our suspense unit here is designed to take 45 days for the entire unit. Because of the restrictions of how often we will be meeting in class and talking, that might take a little bit longer. We're just going to be kind of waiting and seeing how that goes. But each section has a different story or book or excerpt that they will be looking at. Our first one will be Let Them Play God. And so this is looking at the filmmaker Alfred Hitchcock and how he uses suspense in his stories. And the way these are structured is there will always be a first read. So the first read is usually an excerpt from someone's work. And in the first read, that bring up, there's an introduction, a short kind of introductory film that really pulls the reader in. And then we have the article that we will be reading, and there's an audio voice that will read it for us so the students can follow along. And we'll also be working on annotating these stories, highlighting important information. There's also vocabulary contained throughout the excerpt that we'll be looking at and doing some activities with the vocabulary. And then there are always think questions that go along with each story that the students will work through. Usually we do these in groups. So right now we're kind of doing them independently, but as we kind of figure out this distant learning style, we'll be working in some small groups at times. So after our first read, then there are usually 1 to 2 skills that the students work on. So our first skill here are going to be looking at the author's purpose and the author's point of view. There's a video contained in this section where there's some students who kind of sit in a group and talk about the story. So the students are really able to see what they should be doing when they talk in a group. It's a really good program the way it's run. There's a model, and then the students get to practice their own turn, kind of identifying an author's purpose and an author's point of view. There's usually, again, 2 skills. The second skill is usually about centered around word meaning or vocabulary of some sort. And again, it's set up in the same style where the students see an example, they see a model, and then they get to practice it on their own. And then we'll always finish with a close read. We'll look at the excerpt again, and there's just kind of more for the students to do in here. We'll always look at vocabulary and do some assignments around vocabulary. We'll reread the text, and again, looking at annotations, and there's always skill-focused questions. And the students will be dissecting different paragraphs, and again, annotating, highlighting important information, and picking out important parts of the story. And then there's always a writing assignment that goes with it, and a writing prompt. And that's kind of going to be our weekly routine as we work through each section and each unit. Okay. So we won't cover all of these because of our time constraints. And in this program, you're not really supposed to hit every single story anyway. You're supposed to kind of skip some of the redundant stories. But this is kind of how we'll move through our English classes every day. And this is our StudySync program. And then this will link up with Schoology as well, where there'll be grades associated with the completion of each of these assignments. So that is our 2 programs for social studies and English. Again, both of these subjects will be changing as the year goes on. We'll be cutting out certain things. We'll be adjusting the way we study these different subjects as we learn how to navigate through distance learning in a more effective way. We'll make adjustments, and I'll communicate those changes with you. And please, if you have any questions, anything I didn't cover, please feel free to email me at any time. I am on campus, so I'll be at my computer. Right now, because our distance learning is all online based, I'm getting email after email after email. Anytime a student signs in or completes an assignment, I'm getting emails about that. All our communication between teachers and between staff and the administration, the district, it's all by email. So typically, I'm able to get back either the same day or the next day to a response for an email. But right now, it may take me 2 days just because there's so much to look at and read through and go over right now. But I'll always get to you as quickly as possible. And if I don't have an answer for you, I will seek out that answer and get it for you as soon as I can. So thank you for coming tonight, or watching this tonight, I should say. I look forward to meeting all of you. I'm excited to work with all of your children. We just started small groups. I've gotten to talk to some of them in a smaller group setting, which is easier than when all 33 of them are on the computer screen. Right now they're in groups of 7 or 8, and we just started that in the morning time, and I really enjoyed kind of getting to know them in a more intimate setting. So that's been working really well so far, and we're going to just continue that and make the adjustments we need to make the best out of this distance learning that we're doing right now. So I look forward to meeting all of you, and again, please contact me if you have any questions or just want to say hello and touch base. So thank you again for coming on tonight, and look forward to working with your kids for the rest of the year. Thanks. Bye.